And Speaker of the Senate, Ekwe, Ethuro, and Acting Agriculture CS, Aden Mohammed, are in Mombasa for a food security seminar. The aim of the seminar is to address the food shortfall in the country and to assess the impact of climate change in the food production. Well, we are now joined by our coast reporter, John Juma, for details. John, thank you very much for speaking to us. I understand that you'll be interviewing the acting CS of Agriculture, Aden Mohammed, in a short while, but I'd like to hear from you, what is the essence of having this food security and what is being discussed there?
The levels of food security in this country, according to some analysts, is that we are performing below average. And even in the seminar, we had the Speaker of the Senate, Honorable Ekwe Ethuro, saying that a country that can't satisfy itself agriculturally in terms of food security, then it doesn't have that ability to consider itself a very important nation before other nations. And maybe just to take us through all this kind of seminar, the right person to engage is the Acting Cabinet Secretary for Agriculture, Aden Mohammed. Thank you for joining us. Kindly just tell us through, we understand you're going to discuss about national agriculture policy. Tell us about this policy.
Well, we are here with the Senate Committee on Agriculture to discuss a whole raft of issues within the sector which covers agriculture, livestock, as well as fisheries. We did a similar exercise with the members of Parliament a couple of months ago, and it's just to make sure that as part of all the key holders, stakeholder management, discussions are held to deal with issues that are important within the sector. So during this seminar, we are discussing issues on the agricultural policy, which is a requirement of the Constitution for the national government to develop a national agricultural policy that will then be used as a basis for the devolved aspect of agriculture. Then we're also dealing with the veterinary policy that deals with livestock and the fisheries as well. And so there's quite a detailed program that we are covering, some of it on policy issues, some of it review of legislation, to make sure that we can deal appropriately with issues agriculture, livestock and fisheries.
So does it mean that we've not been having such kind of policies in place in the past?
There have been, but they are totally outdated. They are pre-colonial in some cases, not relevant with the with the modern times. For example, who has ever heard about insurance in agriculture, insurance for livestock farmers? These are all new things that are relevant today that needs to be brought to the fore to make sure that our farmers are adequately resourced in terms of dealing with what is actually available. So if you look at agricultural policy, a whole raft of issues covering land use. We are predominantly a small-scale rain-fed agriculture. What do we need to do to encourage? Policies need to be drawn around that. We are talking about issues of productivity, the use of biotechnology in actually improving our agricultural productivity, the issues about value addition. What is it that we are doing about financing of agriculture? Because that is one sector that has never gotten the right level of attention in support from the financial services sector. What about actual data that we need to collect? So I can go on and on these issues, but a whole detailed program is being discussed just on agricultural policy alone. We are looking at sectors like tea. So the tea policy will be discussed during this session. Tea is a significantly important crop for this country, earning us over $1 billion of foreign exchange. But the way we are dealing with it today is the way we used to deal with it, 20, 30, 40 years ago. We need to see how we can do more value addition to create more value for our farmers. We need to see how issues of small scale can be dealt with. And so warehouse receipting. Today farmers produce their stuff, but most of their items get lost through post-harvest losses at the farm. What do we need to do to actually see improvements of this. So warehousing receipting system that is being discussed today is a legislation before Parliament to actually see how farmers can take their proceeds to, produce to recognized and registered warehouses. They get a receipt for it and can actually use that as a collateral for borrowing.
But Waziri, let me just interrupt. Even as we discuss about these policies, you've brought stakeholders. I believe some of them must be coming from the counties because agriculture is now a devolved function in our system of government. A question in all Kenyans' minds will be, how food secure are we?
Well, I think the challenge on our ability to be 100% food secure is a topic that we've discussed for a long time. For example, maize is the main staple food that we have in this country, and we've had some degree of shortages largely through post-harvest losses. And so most of our farming activities happens through small-scale, smallholder farmers. And as a way of making sure that we can increase productivity and we can get more out of that, we are investing in supporting the small-scale farmers through subsidies of fertilizers, for example. We are also trying to see how we can reduce, the issue of post-harvest losses. We lose over 10 million bags, potentially, of maize through post-harvest losses, that we see how we can, working with the National Cereals Board, working with the counties, to actually reduce that. And those are some of the policy direction that needs to be discussed in actually dealing with that.
Facing the camera so that the audience, our viewers, can be able to see you face to face. Now, another question is that even as we try to be food secure, probably our cash crops, you've talked about tea, we're giving cheap and subsidized fertilizers. What about other cash crops in this country? We know of sugarcane, we know of cotton, but it's somehow coffee, all of them are dwindling.
Well, I think the challenge in agriculture as a whole for us as a country is, to a large extent, our inability to actually transform from what has been a traditional rain-fed smallholder farming that we have seen for a long time, pre and post-independence, to one that requires a lot more transformation. So we want to see more farming done through irrigation. We want to see higher productivity through use of technology from the land that we currently are using. We need to do more soil tests to see what can work here and what doesn't. And so a lot of work is going on at the moment, and really we are making some good progress. The fact that we have dedicated the Galana Kulalu program as a way of dealing with actually that food security challenge is to make sure that we can rely much more on irrigated farming techniques that actually is not dependent on whether there's rain or not. So these are all examples of activities that we are doing, to support the farmers, but more importantly to make sure we are able to feed our people.
But that is only one. Do we have such similar programs like the one you've mentioned in coastal region? Do we have such in other regions of the country?
Well, the irrigation is happening in many places. We have got the National Irrigation Board. Rice is predominantly grown through irrigation, and I think where there is sufficient amount of water, and we need to harvest more water as a country, because a lot of our rainwater today goes to waste, to be honest. And so it is in a much smaller scale than we would have liked to, but making a commitment through programs such as 1 million acre Galana Kulalu Ranch is an indication of the direction that we want to take.
How different, this will be my last question to you, how different will be this kind of seminar we are having? Because we know Kenyans, or we've been told that Kenya is good in coming up with policies, first-class policies, but turning them into action has been a nightmare. Will this be the same?
Well, I'm afraid you've got to have alignment, first of all, in policy direction. That is very important, and especially when functions like agriculture is devolved, there are other stakeholders that needs to be aligned in the thinking of what we need to do. Many of the things that we're talking about is actually just not starting from the scratch. We are just building on what has already worked very well. in terms of smallholder support? What should our subsidy program be? What should be the scale of it? How much should we be committing to agriculture as part of, you know, the Maputo Declaration, which requires 10% of our budgetary support to actually deal with agriculture? So this brings a bit of a self-audit, making sure that we refine and build on. For example, GMO has been a subject that has been in the debate of late.
Yes.
What has been banned has been import of GMO products, but research in GMO activities has not been banned. And CALRO, one of the organizations dealing with research, has done a great job. They've actually introduced a variety of maize that is pest and drought resistant. Okay. That now needs to be brought out for utilization by farmers. But to do that, just like every Kenyan is concerned about the safety of GMO products, there is an organization called the National Biosafety Authority that is currently, as we speak, actually assessing the safety of this. As a ministry, we feel confident and we would like to see how we can actually increase the use of technology more and more. But National Biosafety Authority is now seeking public opinion, and I'm sure you have seen quite a number of experts debating on these issues as we speak.
Thank you, Waziri. We are going to engage you further on that topic. GMO, it has been a matter on top debate in this country. We've been talking to the Industrialization Cabinet Secretary, who is also the Acting Cabinet Secretary for Agriculture, Aden Mohammed, telling us about the kind of seminar they are having in Mombasa, White Sands, discussing matters to do with agricultural policies and food security in this country. From me, John Juma, I take you back to our studios in Nairobi.